Bring that meeting to order. Good evening. Welcome everyone to the regularly scheduled State Board of Education meeting for October 2017. Good to have everybody with us. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda that is on the screen. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Sorry. Did you say second, Lisa? Do I hear a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay. The agenda is approved. Our next order of business is to approve the minutes from the September 27th meeting that have been distributed. Do I have a motion to approve that? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. It's either going to be one of y'all.
Yes.
Just in case there's any confusion, they can rotate maybe perhaps or something like that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries for that. The next order of business, approve the minutes on October 4th meeting that have been distributed. Do I hear a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will now turn that motion carries. I will now turn the meeting over to Dr. Mason to present our recognitions.
I'd like to welcome some visitors with us tonight, not really visitors, but colleagues who are part of our Teacher Leaders Program. And as part of their program, they are invited to attend a Board of Education meeting. Hopefully you'll find this instructional, not punitive. But if you would stand and let us welcome you and congratulate you on being a part of that program. Also, we're pleased today to recognize Dr. Ty Arundel and his entire faculty and staff and community for the designation of Liberty Park Elementary School as a National Blue Ribbon School. That's quite an honor. There are only 342 schools nationally this year and 5 in the state of Alabama who achieved that recognition. For the category that they were in, the exemplary high-performing schools, to meet the criteria, nominees must be in the top 15% of all schools in their respective states when students are ranked on state assessment results. So Ty gets 2 awards. He gets to be recognized at the board meeting today. And then maybe equally important, he gets to go to Washington in a few days to be a part of the national recognition program. So Dr. Arundel, we...
We're driving.
Taking the school bus.
So, Dr. Arundel, we congratulate you and your faculty and staff. That's a tremendous achievement. You joined 4 other Vestavia schools who've done that in the past, and I'm sure we'll probably get checks by every one of our schools as soon as it's possible to work through the list. So, congratulations.
We appreciate it. We're very excited.
Good deal. And Dr. Arundel is also choosing to celebrate his birthday by being with us today. So, really big day for him.
Aren't you going to sing? No,
I am. I'm going to the mic.
Okay. And now we move to the delegations. Dr. Mason, do you have some delegations for us?
Yes. Mr. Maynard?
Yes. We have a delegation tonight from Carr, Riggs & Ingram. Jason Harp, who is a partner in the firm, is going to present the exit audit report on Dr. Sheila Phillips.
Stand over here, and Greg, I think in front of you we've got what we customarily do when there's any kind of a change. We'll call it management, which is the superintendent, or we'll even do this sometimes, I told Greg, with CSFOs, but tonight our focus is a change in superintendent with Dr. Phillips' retirement. And what this is really, we call it an audit, but it's an agreed upon procedures engagement where we do certain specific procedures related to the departure of a superintendent. So that's what you'll notice in here, and you know if I've come and done a financial statement audit, this differs considerably from a financial statement audit. That's much broader, and we're doing much bigger items over the financial statement. These are actual procedures, and really what we're concerned with is, was there anything done that was unusual or out of ordinary with any of your policies and procedures related to the controls over the superintendent's office? So that's how we've designed these procedures and how we went about checking these things. And as you'll notice from the beginning, kind of towards the end, we really had a focus to begin with on IT. access, was anything done in the system that looked unusual, and you'll see that we didn't find anything related to any of that over IT, and we kind of walked through that same process with accounts payable, contracts, purchase orders, any of those items where something may have been approved, by the superintendent that may not be within the policies, and we didn't find anything related to our work in that. But this goes through a very detailed, procedures and what we did related to that. So in a nutshell, that's what we have in this document, and that's what we're presenting. We've done this for other boards, so this is a similar type thing we've done for other school boards in Alabama. So I know you're probably seeing it for the first time. I know the board saw these, or Greg may have shown you the procedures to begin with, but this is has the final results of what we went through, and I'll certainly take any questions that you might have related to the work that we did, and maybe give you a few minutes to kind of glance down through the items. There again, I won't necessarily go through each one individually.
Jason, this is just good practice for both to protect the former superintendent and who's coming in new later, and that everything was clean when they left and everything's clean when the new person starts. Right?
And from that standpoint too, you'll see a lot of it. We do dip some into the financial area. For instance, making sure bank reconciliations were done timely. Those issues like that I think are important. Not necessarily. We did make sure financial statements tied, back to state reports and what was on the website and those kind of things. So you're correct. It's kind of a cutoff, mainly from a procedural standpoint, that things were done through that last date. The good thing too is, we're not far, and Greg will probably smile, from starting the regular financial statement audit and the 930 audit. So we'll also quickly here pick that up and begin that process also. So that timing kind of, we've done this, now we're fixing to start the other. So there will be that financial statement audit component that's fixing to start shortly. But I definitely would recommend doing something like this with any change in leadership for sure.
Excellent.
And Greg can tell you a lot of that process was, pulling documents, kind of similar to an audit, but going through detailed records, related to that. So
Very detailed.
yeah. And some of this, because of that agreed upon procedure component, you drill down a lot finer into that process, probably more so than you do with that financial statement audit. That concept of materiality comes into play with the financial statement audit. This is much more, fine-tuned to the actual procedures and records. So it's more of a compliance type than necessarily, numerical.
Steve, Lisa, do you have any questions on that?
No, looks like everything's in proper order.
I think Nancy said she had reviewed it, and given her background, she said she didn't see anything. So.
Okay.
Greg, is this for information only, or does it require action by the board?
It doesn't require any action. We will, when we receive an electronic copy of it, we will post it on the website just for everybody to be able to view.
Okay.
We certainly appreciate Greg helping us get through this process.
The way I look at it, if I let her do something wrong, it's on me.
Yes, that's right.
Hold that thought.
That one's much thicker.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate that. Now, Dr. Mason, you have the administrative reports.
Yes. Our first report today, backed by popular demand, is the construction report, facilities update. We did not have one last month, and that did not go over well. So we're running back to do that again. Actually, we just didn't feel like there was enough change last month to do a report, but we do have some things that moved along. So, Brennan, thank you for updating us.
No problem. Got 3 projects going on that are ongoing construction this month. The first is East. East has been a difficult one to close out. It seems like there's been an issue experienced on East that's been recently right at the end. So we've had some changes to the sewer that have caused a delay to the project. We've had some changes to the fire alarm that have caused a delay to the project. When we're tying in to the existing fire alarm inside the school, had trouble communicating with the devices inside the school, so I had to change our fire alarm plan to make sure that the new panels would talk to the old panels, and that's a big thing the state final inspector looks at if you've ever experienced anything on a construction project. So that, having difficulties with Alabama Power getting permanent power to the site, have delayed where we thought we'd be at this point, but expect here in the next 2 weeks to be wrapped up with this project, have a final inspection, hopefully have a health department inspection. We're targeting middle of November to start using this facility, to hopefully be in there for that Thanksgiving lunch that the students have every year. So at East, if you go by and look at the outside, it looks pretty wrapped up with the exception of the alley in the back. The front entrance is pretty much done. All the concrete asphalt work is done. The dumpster pad's nearing completion. So the outside's looking pretty good. The main issues are on the inside with just devices and fire alarm and getting those finalized out, getting the electrical trimmed out. But if you look at the inside, I mean, it's starting to come together. Furniture's been delivered. Flooring's done, ceiling tiles done, finishes are pretty much done. It's getting that kitchen equipment hood started up, getting the fire alarm devices talking to each other, and almost complete with this project.
Is that more of like a backwards compatibility issue?
It is. It's those devices inside the school being so old and not talking to each other like they thought they were going to, so having to figure out a way to get the new devices to talk with the old devices so it's all one system. At Cahaba Heights, still coming out of the ground in that school. That's the classroom edition and media center edition at that school. All of our lean concrete for our footings are done. Working on footings now, and then we'll start coming up with block work and electrical underground rough in. If you look at the pictures here, you'll see all the foundation work all the footings are getting ready to be poured. After that will be block work. We'll be right behind it starting Monday. So about to start seeing it come out of the ground at that school. Thing is sensitive today. At West, that's the new kitchen cafeteria. You might have seen as you drove in over here. That's the kitchen cafeteria supported on stilts. Challenging project and relatively to the playground, but going well for the most part. It's any time where you're trying to come out of the ground, it's always difficult with rain and the conditions that can affect construction, but going well for the most part. Drilled piers are done. The road that had to be shut down along the pool drive, most of that work is done, getting ready to pave that. All the grading's complete. They put dense grade base on that roadway, getting ready to pave it next week. Concrete footings are ongoing. You'll see a concrete wall here in a second that you could see if you look out here next to the existing building. So getting ready to finish those footings and getting ready to pour the slab on grade is kind of the critical path activities right now. You'll see the road in the top left portion it's being graded. That concrete retaining wall's on the top right, and then they'll move up to the hill and work on the loading dock section. So just coming out of the ground on that project too. Cahaba Heights and West are both on similar paths from the standpoint of they started about the same time. Both coming out of the ground, both have a July finish for start of fall 2018 school year. And then at Berry's, still working through that design process, still progressing on that. The site and grading package and demo package has been advertised. We've started receiving pre-quals on that. I'm going to do pre-qual for that site and early demo package soon. And then still working through building programming at this time, working towards getting that out the door and hopefully bidding that site and grading package middle of November. So that's our timeline at Berry right now, still progressing on that and doing as much as we can. So that's kind of the three projects that are ongoing, along with our Berry project that we know is out there and moving forward to get ready started with construction on that project. Any questions?
How, if we add Gresham to our properties, and depending on what's done with Gresham, how will that affect your bids already? If there's less to be done at Berry or more to be done at Berry, or
we haven't had any bids yet at Berry, so we're trying to design as much as we can at Berry that we know is going to take place no matter what.
So
I
the
think
grading and the site work.
the grading
that
at the
had
site
been.
work, we know that's going to happen regardless.
Okay.
So we know we could get that package out the door, go ahead and move forward with that work, and it wouldn't change anything in the plan at Berry.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we're taking that approach right now to see how the board ultimately determines the purchase of Gresham, use of Gresham. So keeping that in mind, that we don't want to do anything twice or put anything out there that could not be used or is not needed. So that's kind of the intent of that early site and grading package.
Okay.
And that's the December deadline
Right.
that is driving our reconsideration of the structure of the schools, is that Brennan and Latham have said that if we can have a decision by the December board meeting, then everything can stay on schedule. So that's the deadline that's driving us.
Okay.
That's right.
And West and Cahaba Heights are on schedule
They are.
so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hadn't had any hiccups at those sites.
Okay. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Brennan.
Okay, the next item is fiscal notification. I'll ask Mr. Maynard to address that.
Okay, back in 2006, the legislature passed an Accountability Act, one of several over the years. But that one specified that one of the duties of the CSFO was to report to the board any transactions that met the following criteria. They were non-routine, they were unusual, they were without legal authorization, or they were not in compliance with fiscal management policies of the board. Requires this be made in a board meeting and that the report become part of the minutes of that meeting. What I'm reporting to the board is dealing with number 4, items or transactions that were not in compliance with the fiscal management policies of the board. Board requires in its fiscal management procedures that all purchases be pre-approved and except for emergency situations, and that involves a requisition being done, approved, and a PO being generated, and at that point the purchase being made. There were quite a few purchases that were made where the invoice was dated, or where the purchase order was dated after the invoice, and those are the transactions that I'm reporting on you to the board. Person has been counseled and will receive additional counsel and instruction on those procedures. And that's all I have to report on that.
And that is a report, is that correct? There's no action required by the board?
No action, just I have my duty to report it to the board.
Next would be the financial statements. Yeah. Sorry, Greg.
Well, this one's a little bit better because I can say that information in your packet is for the month of September. Local revenue is 15% above what was budgeted. And if you take out the unexpected windfall of the $4.7 million from the Jefferson County sales tax funds, it still leaves us somewhere after accruals, close out, everything I have to do for the audit. I believe it's going to still put us at least $1 million above what we had budgeted for the year in our local revenues, our ad valorem. So it looks like we're going to finish the year very well. Expenditures are up a little bit over budget. We actually finished up with expenditures being just a hair over 4% above what we had budgeted, but we have had strong increase in revenue, and we did have some items that came up that we had to take care of that were not in the original budget. Approximately $750,000 worth of teacher laptops were replaced this year, and that was not originally budgeted. So we've had a few items like that came up. Overall, it looks like I said, we should end the year in very good position. These numbers that I presented are unaudited. At this point, I start working on accruing revenues that have not come in yet, and more importantly, accounts payable. Any bills that were owed at September 30th that hadn't been paid, those will be put into the audited financials.
How do our the revenues that were 15% in excess of what we had budgeted, how does that number compare to what we had forecasted for 2017 budget? Or for the next year, sorry.
Yeah, we're still, we had actually, for the 2018 budget, we had upped the local revenues by about $1 million over what we had for this year without that $4.7 million in there. So that seems to be what the trend is right now. Don't know how long that will keep up, because it's kind of been fueled by commercial developments that have been going on in Vestavia Hills. And I don't know what's out there that may be coming online later on. The projects I had will all be online in this coming tax year.
So we still feel that we have some favorability in 18, but not to the extent that we would in 17.
Yeah, and we do have the $1.2 million in Jefferson County sales tax funds that will start coming in. Don't know if it'll be 2018 or 2019, but that will help bridge the way we structured our debt service on the bonds. We structured it at a lower, basically, interest-only rate for 5 years. While that went through the court system, that will be enough when it comes in to bridge and put us where it's going to be for the rest of the life of that bond issue. So I think we're in pretty good shape as far as that. So. All right. And all board bank accounts have been reconciled as of September 30th, because Dr. Mason signed them.
Did Steve Lacey, you have any other questions? No.
I think that does require it.
Yes, it does. You've heard Dr. Mason recommended that we accept those as presented. Do we have a motion to approve that recommendation?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I have several consent items I'd like to recommend approval for. Several are state overnight trips that you see listed in your agenda, and then also some items of property that need to be disposed of and taken off our inventory.
So Dr. Mason recommends that we approve the consent items as listed in your agenda packet. Do we have a motion to accept that recommendation?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now on to the business.
The state requires each school system to have a long-range capital plan that's updated at least annually. And so this is the time of year that we would submit that. And Greg may have some comments about it beyond mine, but essentially what you have that we're proposing to submit to the state just reflects the plans are already in place. And as we had an earlier discussion later, we know that there are several decisions that the board may be making over the next several months that would cause that to be modified. The plan can be updated at any time during the fiscal year. There's no obligation to do exactly what is in the plan that's submitted. It's just a requirement that the state has to try to encourage local school systems to be doing long-range capital planning. So this will meet that requirement, again, with the expectation that sometime in the next few months that the staff will be back to you with a recommended update to the capital plan.
You all have heard Dr. Mason's recommendation that we accept the 5-year capital plan as presented. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Motion carries.
Okay, Greg, you've had enough of a break. Let's go on to the next, go to the next item.
All right, the next item is Chronos time and attendance software purchase. Currently, we're using a time and attendance system that requires employees to log in on a computer. Certified employees also sign out at lunch, sign back in after lunch, and then sign out at the end of the day. It records all employees' absences, whether it's sick leave, vacation leave, professional leave. It is all keyed in on computer, but right now that system does not interface with our payroll system. So at each of the schools every month, the timekeeper has to print out the report of those absences, send it to the central office, and then we have to manually key all that into our payroll system. Causes some areas for problems when you're having to manually manipulate that data several times. Kronos is a system that's been out there for several years. It's in use by Jefferson County, Limestone County, St. Clair County, Hoover, a few others, and it does interface with our payroll system. So when employees go and record their absences, sign in and out, that's automatically imported into the payroll software, so that cuts down on time for the two clerks up here who do it to key in all that information on nearly 1,000 people. And hopefully eliminates error. It will provide them time to go through and actually check instead of worry about keying that information in. Also has one nice benefit I was happy to hear. Currently when an employee applies for leave, we have these multicolored forms depending upon which type of leave it is. They fill those out. They're signed at the school. They come up here. They're checked by the curriculum department. They're signed by me. They're signed by the superintendent. Had to stack this thick in my box today. On this system, it allows for them to put in for leave online, and all those approvals will be generated online, and no more multicolored forms flowing around. See, we get a few claps out there for that. So,
Yes, sure.
that's something I've been working to try to get rid of for 3 years with 2 other companies, and it didn't pan out. So we've got high hopes for this one, but that will again ensure some more efficiencies in the way things operate. And one enhancement they have that I really like is they have little stations that we purchase. It's not part of this price, that will actually read our ID badges, and people can sign in and out just by flashing their ID badge in front of the scanner. Particularly that will come in handy for bus drivers, child nutrition workers, custodians, people who don't normally have access to a computer all day long. So that may be part of the long-term implementation. Any questions?
What's the payroll system we use? Just curious.
It's started out, it was called McAleer. Then it's gone to NextGen, and that's what it's called. The McAleer Corporation was bought out by a company called Harris Solutions a couple of years ago, so it's Harris. And they are, the state-approved software for finance and payroll. All districts in the state of Alabama except for Dothan, and there may be one other one who's still using an older system called Innovac, but by and large it is the state standard.
Kronos is pretty much the de facto standard out there. Like a lot of our old hospital and doctor's office customers use Kronos for the same kind of thing. People aren't in front of a computer all day.
Yeah.
Swipe in and out.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. They didn't tell me that part of the equation.
Yeah.
So.
They told you all the school systems that use it,
Yeah,
right?
Right, yeah.
Smart. Do you have any questions about Kronos?
What are the checks and balances for it? As far as, I mean, does everybody physically have to log in and log out each day?
Everybody except currently directors are not required to, just because of the nature of their jobs of being out in different areas, different schools, different parts of the day. The main thing I like about this is if an employee should have what they call a missed punch, if they forgot to, let's say they went to lunch and they forgot to sign back in when they came back because the phone's ringing, there's 15 people at the front desk, they are the only ones who can go in and correct that. On other systems, a supervisor or somebody who's over the payroll at the school can go in and manipulate that record. But on this system, no, the actual employee does it and it's documented. And you can't have anybody say, oh, those really weren't my days off. Somebody's been in and manipulated those. So
So if that happens and they forget to log in when they log in and it's later,
It prompts them to
okay,
know why.
to know why, and then does someone have to approve that adjustment? Or?
Yeah, it actually goes through and their supervisor will see that and has to approve all those electronic logins at the end of the month before they're transmitted to the central office to go into the payroll system. So there's a check there. There's also the check that on any of the leave that's taken, sick, vacation, professional. Right now we have the paper forms that are the backup. That's also submitted with the payroll where that can be cross-checked. On the new system, when we get that part implemented, it'll be an electronic file that will be out there for us to cross-check with to say, okay, they put down a day of sick leave. Yes, here's their sick leave authorization that they had requested or their vacation authorization. So we do that to try to make sure that anything's out there has been approved and there is a backup document of some sort to support the leave that they have keyed in.
Is there a means for the employees checking in and checking out to, if they feel there's a discrepancy, do they go to their supervisor to say, I was actually here 80 weeks, got 80 hours, not 72 hours? And
Sure, they can always do that, but part of it will be that the record will be checked, and as long as they are signing in and signing out like they're supposed to, it should be accurate. There is, and if there is a problem with an employee who's not logging into the system like they're supposed to, that's an issue that their supervisor needs to address with them, because it's not a failure of the system, it's failure for them to follow procedures. Also, at the beginning of every year, we hand out a document to all the principals for all their support workers that specifies what their contract days are, what the beginning day they work is, what the ending day they work is, and what they fill in what their hours are. Start at 7:30 in the morning, end at 4:30 in the afternoon, and further into that document it says that the employee will be required to use the time and attendance system of the district to record all of their time. Employee signs it, we file a copy, they keep a copy, and the school keeps a copy. So we try to make it clear that they are to use the time and attendance system.
And all this, which sounds really burdensome, is driven by working hour laws, in that we have to keep track of hourly workers so that, first of all, if they are working overtime, they're fairly paid for that, but also to control overtime to be sure that we're not inadvertently having a lot of overtime. So it's an elaborate system, but it's a necessary one.
Yes, wage and hour suits get very expensive very quickly. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so you've heard Dr. Mason's recommendation to acquire the Kronos software. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next, overflow parking request.
This is the one everybody's been waiting for.
That's been holding my breath.
Philadelphia Baptist Church in Cava Heights has been nice enough to let us use some of their parking facilities for overflow crowds at the schools. So Principal Alicia Hunsberger can explain to you a little bit about why we need to get board approval for that.
So they graciously let us use them for a couple of years. They had an incident with another organization that used their parking lot that ruined some of their AC equipment and stuff. So now, if we're going to use their parking lot, we just have to have proof of insurance so that we're going to take care of their lot and that kind of thing. So we did that last year, and the policy states that it has to be board approved. So Greg just said, bring it forward.
And let me add one thing. Our insurer, Alabama Trust for Boards of Education, didn't used to require this, but for them to issue a certificate of insurance with the church named as co-insured now requires that there is a board action so that they know the board has approved this and it's not somebody just going out on their own and doing it. So you may see some more of these during the year.
I think we have 3 times at our school that we're going to do Thanksgiving lunch and an open house for parents next night.
Did y'all shuttle them over? Any questions around parking? Sure, Lisa? Okay, got it. You've heard Dr. Mason's recommendation that we authorize the use of the parking lot at the church for Cabo Heights Elementary School activities. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Motion carries. Next about textbooks.
Each year, the school system establishes a textbook committee to act in an advisory capacity as we review textbooks and other instructional materials for whichever subject areas are up for review that year. I believe this year those areas are world language and fine arts. Is that correct? And so you see a recommended list of people to serve on that committee. It's a combination of parents and employees. So.
Questions on textbook? Okay. Dr. Mason recommends that we approve the textbook committee members as submitted. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Superintendent search process and timeline. Actually, people are interested in this section.
Right. As everyone knows, Dr. Terry Jenkins, on behalf of the Alabama Association of School Boards, spent a good deal of time in the community last week, 2 days, talking with board members individually and different community groups to get their insights into the superintendent search process. As a result of those conversations with Dr. Jenkins, I think the board's in a position now to formally adopt the process and the timeline for the superintendent search. That's something obviously that needs to be communicated under any circumstances. It's also a state law that within 90 days of the superintendency becoming vacant, the board must officially adopt and announce the process and timeline for the search. So this would match up with what you and Dr. Jenkins have discussed and also satisfy that requirement. I would say that there's a minor change in the document that's in front of you for approval tonight, and that's simply because you moved your work session from today to Monday. So that date has been changed to reflect that, and so that means the posting date will be a couple of days later than it would have been had you acted on this, or had you had that meeting with Dr. Jenkins today. Everything else stays the same.
And there's no vote required for this. It's just for notification purposes.
Actually, I think there is a vote required here. It doesn't say that, but I think you probably should formally adopt
Okay.
it so we can be sure that you met the requirements of the state law.
That works. So your recommendation is that we accept the timeline as presented.
Yes.
And do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I think common sense would suggest that if circumstances prevail and you need to adjust the timeline, that's certainly within your right to do that as the process unfolds. But this is a statement of your intent of how the process would play out over the next several weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not nailed to that. It's kind of like construction, it's fluid. So we don't, if we say February 2nd, we're not just going to choose to meet the timeline.
Right.
We're
Whether you have any candidates or not,
We're going to take
you
the
don't
time
have
to
to
get the right
choose.
candidate. So
We'll make you superintendent February 2nd, Steve. If we gotta stick to those. Stick to those.
You can't have that.
Find the willing. We're not gonna find the willing. Next would be personnel.
Several personnel recommendations that I ask the board to approve.
Dr. Mason has recommended that we approve the following personnel actions related to retirements, resignations, reassignments, leave of absence, and employments. You've had it presented in your packet. Do we have a recommendation? Motion, sorry?
So moved.
Do you have a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now, the WSB Convention Delegate Assembly will be in Birmingham on December 7th through 9th. The business portion will be held on Thursday, December 7th at 6:15. We need a board member to volunteer to represent us as a delegate and one as an alternate delegate. So are one of you available on December 7th at 6:15? I think Jerry and Nancy would do a great job.
I think President and Vice President
Would do a
yes.
fantastic
Yes, I
job
think,
at that.
I second that.
Okay, so for reals with a Z at the end. Are you in town on December 7th, Steve?
I don't think so. I'm at Pearl Harbor, I think.
Okay, yeah, 1941, Table of Infamy. What about you?
I think I'm out of town.
Okay, then we will pursue Nancy and Jerry to fill those slots.
Yeah.
for
I
us.
seriously think I may not be able to make it.
Okay, got it. We will check with them and then notify WSB accordingly. No vote from what I understand is required of that. We just simply have to designate someone. That brings us to the superintendent updates.
I have nothing other than the items that we've already covered.
Okay, then we will open up for public comments. We're going to have an executive session at the end, but we're going to open up for public comments. We ask that you please limit your comments to the agenda items, that you come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes if possible. Do we have any public commentary? Sure. Andy?
Kimberly Cook, 4487 Galen Way, and mine is a question, and it will be much less than 3 minutes.
Very
My
good.
question is, for the transaction that Mr. Maynor reported, what is the total dollar amount approximately of those transactions that were reported?
This will be approximate because I do not have backup documentation with me. Approximately $7,000 for approximately 7 transactions that I haven't tracked for that particular report.
And I would point out, this is a matter of not following procedures. There's no involvement in an improper purchase or an improper use of funds. It's simply a matter of following procedures. So I'm happy to clear that up.
In our checks and balances caught it too.
Correct,
So, in
yes.
his department.
Correct.
So,
Absolutely.
Good job there. So,
So any other public comments? If not, we will hear parent grievance and executive session. Dr. Mason?
Yes, so the last item on the agenda is a level 3 hearing regarding a grievance filed by a parent. Our board policy 4.6 allows parents to file a grievance or request for corrected action regarding any aspect of the school system's operations. Vestavia Hills High School Principal Dr. Tyler Burgess has completed the level 1 grievance hearing and denied the relief sought by the parent. I, as superintendent, have completed the level 2 grievance hearing and denied the relief sought by the parent. The parent has requested a level 3 grievance hearing before the board. And I'll turn the meeting back over to Mr. Powell.
Superintendent Mason, do you have a recommendation regarding whether or not this board should conduct this level 3 complaint/grievance hearing?
Yes, I do. I recommend that the board conduct the level 3 grievance hearing.
Do I hear a motion for approval of the superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, Dr. Mason, do you have any other recommendations to make to the board at this time?
Yes, the Alabama Open Meetings Act allows governmental bodies like the Vestavia Hills Board of Education to meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing the good name and character of an individual and the job performance of certain employees and a student. I recommend that this board meet tonight in executive session for the purpose of conducting this level 3 complaint grievance hearing because we will be discussing the good name and character of employees and a student. I want to remind all of us as follows: no action can be taken in an executive session. There will be no vote taken in the executive session. No minutes of the executive session shall be made. Only those individuals that I name may attend the executive session. Therefore, I am requesting that all members of the Board of Education, the parent, Principal Dr. Tyler Burgess, Board Attorney Patrick Boone, and I attend the executive session. I estimate that the executive session will last no more than an hour. In order to convene an executive session, a majority of the members of the board must adopt by recorded vote a motion calling for the executive session. Prior to voting to convene an executive session, the board must receive an oral declaration from our board attorney that we can meet in executive session for this purpose. Following the executive session, we will reconvene this regular meeting. Mr. Boone, does my recommendation meet with the requirements of the Alabama Open Meetings Act, and can we meet in executive session for the purpose pursuant to what I've included in my recommendation?
Yes, sir, you can, and specifically the Alabama Open Meetings Act, Title 36-25A, 7A1 permits this. Yes, sir.
You have heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Do I hear a motion to convene an executive session all in accordance with this recommendation?
So moved.
There a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I now ask all people in attendance, except for the individuals the superintendent requested to remain in the meeting, leave the room and the door be closed. We are out of executive session. Is there a motion to reconvene the open meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are back in open session and have come out of executive session. Do we have a motion?
Yes. I move that the board deny the relief sought by the grievant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Stand adjourned. Given there's no other business, we stand adjourned. Thank you.